The following presentation is brought to you live from Dallas, Texas, for the International Association of Square Dance Callers 26th Annual Convention. This is tape 18, Partners Session.
Okay, how about we get going here, since we're about 5 minutes late anyway. You can sit up there if you want to, but we've been rather informal. We're real informal here. Jerry, we're just telling you that we're real flexible, and we've been real relaxed and kind of wandering around instead of sitting down, but that's entirely up to anybody. Our panelists this morning list Mike and Marianne and Larry and I, but Jerry Junck has come in to talk with us also. We're going to start with Marianne. She's going to talk a little bit about being a booking agent, why she does it and how she does it, and if you have questions for her, go with it.
Good morning, ladies. And Roy. Yes, Roy. Good morning, Roy. The reason I book is because I'm the only one home to do it. Michael's at the office, and I'm kind of in between runs, and so I usually get all the phone calls. Booking's very interesting, and there is no black and white in booking. There's a whole lot of gray areas in booking. And I think if you all you women out there, how many of you do bookings? Let's see a show of hands. Okay. They say there's no black and white. Every organization calls for a different fee, different programs, whatever the case may be. So when somebody calls me up, first of all, I want to know where it is and how long a distance we're going to be traveling. I want to know what kind of organization it is. I want to know if we're dealing with all adults, if we're dealing with families, if we're dealing with all children, if we're dealing with senior citizens. And these are all the questions that you need to ask before you can determine what kind of fee you're going to charge. Oh, do you not know that we're just talking about... No, they don't. I'm sorry. It's early. Come on, give me a break. Okay. This is for non-club dances. This is for parties, okay? Or as we call them, one-nighters or one-night stands, whatever you want to call them. And then I'll get into the club thing in a minute, okay? So those are some of the questions that I'm going to ask, and I want to know how many people are going to be there. Because if a church calls you and they have 30 people from their church that you're going to do a little party for, you can't charge them a fee that you would charge a larger organization. I think on this whole thing you kind of have to use your head a little bit. Every area, I believe, has sort of a set fee. In our area, most of the guys kind of stay in this realm for fees. And if you have any question, ask another caller's wife or a caller and say, how much do you guys charge for a 2-hour program? Or how much do you charge for this or charge for that? You know what, I kind of find this way too. If you're really, really inexpensive, they don't want you. Because, if I charge you $20, well, then we can't be that good. For $20, it's like going anywhere else. You pay the less, but yet you can't say, I'm going to charge you $150, because then that's too much. So I kind of have to play it by ear. And I usually set anything over 100 people, then I kick into a little higher fee. And of course, if any of you are fortunate enough to do a one-nighter for the Toyota company, then you say, wonder what your budget is. Let's talk about that, So there's all kinds of ways of doing this. What else do I want to tell them? I really was the wrong person to get up here this early in the morning, Yeah. Well, you ask if there's going to be drinking. Okay, Mike and I usually don't, because drinking doesn't make any difference, because they're still paying us, and they could be drunk as skunks. I'm still going to charge them at the end of the night. If they don't want to dance, that's okay, and if they do. And Mike and I have always handled that very well. I work the floor, and I usually keep people pretty much in order, even if I have to slap them a few times. But no, usually, and Mike, with the music, and we kind of see what the situation is. Every one-night party is different. There's not one of them are the same. Do any of you girls go along with your husbands on these? Do you? And what do you do when you're there with them? What do you do?
I try to mix with the people and get acquainted with them and help fill squares, get them up off the off the chairs and into the squares.
Okay. Anybody else?
We do a lot of those. The biggest and the hardest that we've had is when we go to the big universities. We have between 600 and 800. Okay. Our thing is nonstop. Ron, we start with a mixer. The hardest we found are freshmen who don't know what to do. They have to be led into it. And so we start with a mixer, and then, just like you, I work the floor. But in order to give Ron a rest, because if you let them break, you lose them. They're off to another activity. And so I immediately go into some kind of a little line dance or mixer or something, and we're hired for 2 hours, and they say keep them going, and that's what we do.
That's another thing is the time slot. 2 hours, usually when somebody calls and they'll say we want a 3-hour program, I always try to talk them out of a 3-hour program. 3 hours is a very long time. And I usually say, well, then that'll cost you an extra $100 just to talk them out of it, because a lot of times they insist you can't do a one-nighter in 3 hours, but not the way we do them, because we run them to death. They get their money's worth. By 2 hours, they're begging to go home. So usually the 3-hour thing just never works. Again, too, I think it's the partner's job, if you're there, not to sit on the sidelines, to get out and hustle people around, get them going in the right direction. Even sometimes I have to lead them. Come on, follow me, and then I'll jump out as long as they get the idea where they're going. I know that I'm getting off again. Oh, please, turn the recorder off. Okay, let me think here. Let me gather my thoughts. Fees? Okay. No, we don't do. Not on parties. We don't. That's for clubs. No, we don't. We don't do fees. We don't do contracts. And sometimes it would be very hard to collect, on a contract. Who are you going to send this contract to? Mary Jane Smith from the church who's trying to gather this up? She's not going to sign this.
We work on contracts.
On the microphone.
Now this is one-nighters.
Yes. In our area, if you don't have a contract with your Social Security number on it, you don't get paid. So we have a little kind of generic contract. And we try to send it in ahead of time. If you send it in ahead of time, you're going to get paid the night you work. If you hand it to them the night you work, you're going to get paid a month down the road, maybe. Universities, some churches, large churches.
As someone who's been audited 6 times, I was creative one year, but yes, I'm Marshall Flippo, and no, but it's good to get. You don't necessarily need a formal contract, and very, like you say, you're dealing with Mary Smith from the Katona Methodist Church, but get a letter of confirmation, something in writing, simply saying this will just confirm that you've agreed to come and do this for a fee, and you have a record of it. Because, especially when you're dealing with a cash business, as a lot of these will be, in the event that you need the documentation, it's a good idea to have it. It's just a fail-safe.
Greg Anderson, Colorado. I haven't actually used this myself, but a friend of mine who is a professional DJ uses contracts, and I've thought about doing what he does because in the last 6 months I've had 2 or 3 one-nighters canceled on me on rather short notice. When he has a party that's interested in doing a function, he will send them a contract that is valid for 30 days, and they return it with a deposit. If they then cancel after the 30 days, he keeps the deposit. Most of his are for big ones, but I've thought about even a small deposit for some of the groups that have been calling me just because of the fact that I've now been canceled on short notice. And that's unusual, and I don't know if it's a sign of the times or if I just hit a batch of those and it'll never happen again. I'm just not certain.
I find that very interesting for as many times as many parties we've done. Do you know we have never had a last-minute cancellation? I think we've been very fortunate. Maybe we're just one of the lucky guys.
Chris Day from England. We always have a contract, and it goes out with a copy for them, and they send it back with a deposit. And we do get a lot of cancellations, but we're safeguarding ourselves. And also on that contract says what else is involved, like a raffle or entertainment within that, so we know exactly where we stand, and numbers, and whether they're having a buffet or whatever they're having, so we know exactly if it's a 3-hour that they're having a break, so we can plan it. And then it's up to them how they organise it, get the numbers, whatever.
Are you all still doing the same amount of parties that you have been doing in the past? Have you picked up more from last year than this year, or is it declining, or...
I was pointing to the sky to signal up, meaning more, so you wouldn't have to run back here with a microphone. But we almost feel like we should be sitting closer, so we're instead of taking up the whole room. But yes, more, and I'm consciously seeking more. I'm doing more one-nighter parties now than I am club calling, which is the direction that I want to go to.
How are you going in that direction? What are you doing to get more parties?
Trying to do a good job at the last ones. Most of mine come from word of mouth. I'm doing a few more corporate parties, and I got luckily linked in with a group, and they liked what I did. So, and I also have promo cards made that are done by a sport trading card company with my picture on it, and they're rather expensive, but I had a few thousand of these made, and I handed them out all over the place when I do the one-nighter parties. So hopefully that will trigger something, a wedding reception or something later on down the road.
It's a real good idea.
Roy Gata from New Jersey again. We're actually being much more selective about who we will do these for. And it ties in a lot with this whole public image thing that we're dealing with. We're tending to do, we turn down a lot of them. Now, we don't get as many as we used to because we don't have the time with the club calling. But we tend to take father-daughter. We do a couple of fourth graders each year. Actually, we don't get paid for those. It's just to give them a positive experience in their school. It's like controlled chaos sort of thing. But the reason we do that, and you had talked about alcohol, we very specifically ask whether there's going to be a dinner, whether there's going to be alcohol, whether there's going to be other entertainment. And we usually do not, unless we're really convinced, we tend to not take those because it's going to be one of those situations where you're begging the people to get out on the floor, where you've got a bunch of drunks, and you do not have a positive square dance experience, and that tends to hurt, we think, our image. So we, people say, well, maybe you can turn that around, but we find that if people are coming there to square dance, they may be dragged there by their spouse, whatever, but we can give them a much more positive experience, and we think we're helping the activity a little more that way. That's our particular philosophy.
Must be our area because they like to party.
We have almost doubled in the past year because of universities and churches. One of the things we've been doing is doing fourth grade. Missouri has a state, square dancing has a state dance now, and fourth grade studies, Missouri, we have been to as high as 4 schools a day. We do not charge. They give us a letter thanking us, and we do that. But we give little certificates, and on the back of that little fun certificate is our name, address, and telephone number. You wouldn't believe how that has worked.
Michael, you want to say something?
I tend to agree with what Roy said 100% back there. If it's a party that's strictly set up for drinking, they want to dance, we won't take it. But at the same time, we do not preclude parties that have drinking associated with them. For example, wedding receptions, things like that. Yes, you have to use your common sense on it. And just because there's a little bit of drinking going on at a party doesn't mean it's going to be a negative experience. So you have to, it's like everything else when you book, you have to use a little bit of common sense. And to get back on the booking line, one of the things I want to caution against is one or the other does all the booking. Don't both of you book. I guarantee you might get away with it for a couple of years, but sooner or later, you are going to find yourself double booked one way, shape, or form. Marianne keeps a calendar up next to the phone. That's the gospel right there. Doesn't matter what I have on my computer. Doesn't matter what I have in my notebook. If it's on her calendar, that's what we're doing. So she is in charge of every activity that we do. And that's the way it has to be.
Well, you go first, then I'll ask my question.
Okay, one last comment on the following up on the is there drinking or not. One of the reasons it came up for us wasn't because we would or would not take a fun night because of that, but considered it was extra hard work if there was drinking. And so we would actually charge extra if there was drinking. Yeah, for that reason, it was just that much extra work, just to crowd control.
On the booking, a lot of you said you do the booking. I would ask a question. Why do you do the booking versus the caller? I've talked to several people that do the booking because they can say no easier than the caller can, but if you have other reasons, I'd like to know.
It's quite simple. I'm more mercenary. I charge more money than Betsy would. And usually we have several other callers in the area, and basically we've discussed it, and the one who does the booking, it's for that reason. They're tougher.
I know some people do it because they just can say no, and I've staunchly refused because on the nights that Larry comes home from work and he just really is miserable and tired and doesn't want to go, I don't want to be the reason he had that dance that night, so I won't book.
I wanted to say something about the calendar and the booking. We have the same philosophy, but our official booking calendar never leaves the house. Only because we're just afraid we're going to leave it someplace. We each carry one of those marvelous little digital diaries, which we update periodically. And when people want to book us immediately there, we say, well, we check these. It appears to be available. I will call you tomorrow. Give me a time to call you, and then we solidify it then. But we used to kind of carry it with us, and then it was like someone would call and, oh, damn, it's in Betsy's briefcase, and she's at work, or then it's like, where is it? And finally we find it, and it's in a suitcase someplace from last weekend. So it's like it's on the refrigerator, and it never leaves there.
Any other comments?
You're talking about booking. Jerry Junck, Nebraska. I do all of our booking. My wife does not. And I do it because one time she took a dance for me. And I said, why'd you take that dance? And she said, because you had it open. And I said, but that's 1,000 miles. She said, we're only that far on the map. I said, I don't think you should do this anymore. Well, yeah. Also, and for the same reason, you have to have one or the other do the booking. I do the driving, I do the miles, and I do them mostly by myself. I know how far I can drive. I know, been around long enough, traveled long enough. I know what I can do in a day, what I can't do in a day. I know if I need a drive day in between. Sharon doesn't know that. There's no way to tell. Sherry Haig sitting back there, she knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I'll never forget Sharon. I said, why'd you take that? She said, well, you had it open. I said, that's 1,000 miles. She said, just that far on the map. Yeah. And I said, I don't think you should do that anymore. So one or the other. We're in a little different situation because we do it for a living. And I take my calendar with me. It never leaves my briefcase, ever. And that's what I live by, that calendar. And it just has to be your Bible. That's all there is to it. But I run it completely. But it's a different situation than for you people.
And then, of course, you all know that you did the follow-up call the week before just to make sure that everything's in order, and double-check your phone numbers when you take them to make sure, give me a second number. Always get a second number in case this one doesn't work, just to follow up and say, we still have you down here, things are going all right, et cetera, et cetera. So that's usually how I do this. Now I'm going to hand the microphone over to Michael, and he's going to tell you about booking clubs, because I do not book clubs. He does. Oh, okay.
I'm lazy. And Jerry, I can sympathize with you on that far on a map. I've had the same experience a couple times. Only I wasn't quite as smart. It took me 2 or 3 times to learn not to trust her. She's a wonderful booker, but she can't read a map worth a darn. No, the hooker joke was already used. I'm not going to use someone else's jokes. I do club contracts basically myself, just because I have a better familiarity with what the clubs do in the area. I'm not going to book myself for a challenge dance or an advanced dance or something like that. If it's a group that's a very elementary advanced group, yes, I might go ahead and do it, because I know that they dance pretty much standard position. They don't want the challenge or anything like that. But I'm not going to dance or book an advanced group that is extremely experienced and expect a higher level dance program than what I feel I can give them. I use a standard CALLERLAB contract on club contracts. And it's not because of having a contract with the club itself. It's just the fact that it's such a wonderful tool for spelling out everything that you need to know about a club event. It's got where the rounds are. It's got the times. It's got if you're working with somebody. It's got all the information you need to summarize that dance, and that goes into part of my file as part of the permanent record for that dance, for, like Roy was saying, for tax records and nothing else. I have been very fortunate. I have not been audited yet. But every year it's an adventure. I personally don't do a lot of outside calling outside of my area. I have a full-time job, and it's almost impossible for me to travel any distance to do a dance. So maybe 50 miles is just about it. My work schedule is so varied, and that Mary Ann can't know what it is. That's why I am responsible for all club bookings. Parties are different. They usually happen on the weekend anyway. We have very, very few parties that happen during the middle of the week. Most of ours are on a Friday or Saturday night, and we have the time to go to them. But on club dances, I want the option myself of saying, no, I know I have to be out of town on a business trip the next day. There's no way I can do that. And that's the only way we separate it up. If it was possible, she would be doing all my bookings, because I firmly believe that only one person should do it. But just because of the unique circumstances we're in, we can't do that. And it all goes back to what we were saying before. It's common sense. You have to find a mechanism that works well for you and your partner. And as long as you all have a set of rules defined that says who does when, under what circumstances, you won't have any trouble scheduling or anything else. It'll work out fine. But you have to establish those ground rules and then make sure you both follow them.
Thank you, Mike and Mary Ann. We're going to move along. Jerry Junck's come in to talk to us a little bit about the role of the partner. I know we handle this probably just about every year, but I think Jerry will give us a little bit of a twist on it.
Okay, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. I promised to do a partners session for a long time, and it always seemed like every partners session I was doing something else. And I really wanted to do this for Kathy. All of us are different. We talked about the booking. I believe one person has to do the booking. In our case, where I'm traveling a great deal in the summertime, I do the booking. I've got the calendar with me, and I can look at it and say, yes, I can or I can't. And a lot of times I'm away 2-3 weeks at a shot, so, it's very difficult. One thing, my wife's name is Sharon, one thing she does do is that she's home and she answers the phone. And you could not ask for a better secretary than Sharon is, because I get every call. Somebody calls, I usually call in every other day or so, and I get all my calls, all my messages, and then I can sit down that night and return all the calls. And nobody could do that better. I never get a wrong number, never get a wrong address, or anything like that. In that respect, she couldn't be more help, because I always get all the calls and I know who to contact. One of the things that I ran into in the last year, we sold we live in two areas. We live in Nebraska in the summertime, we live in Mesa, Arizona in the winter, so we have two homes. And when you do that, then you have two addresses, and it's difficult for people to find where you are. Even if they know where you are, they'll call the other one. So we compounded that last year. We had an older home, and Sharon said, I think we ought to sell this home. It had a lot of rooms in it. It had 12 rooms, an old Victorian home. She said, we want to downsize. I said, okay. So we had a realtor come out, and he's a square dancer, and he said, an old home like this in a little old town of 230 people, he said, this take a while to sell. It might take a couple, three years. I said, okay, we got nothing but time. I went to Maine and came home, and Sharon said, we have to talk. I said, why? She said, I sold a house. I said, you sold a house? She said, yeah. I said, we don't have a house to go to. She said, I know that. So maybe we ought to look. So by doing that, then, we not only had the address in Mesa, Arizona, then we changed from Carroll, Nebraska to Wayne, Nebraska. So in last season and this season, anytime that I'm going out on the road 2 weeks before, I call everybody on my contract, because these contracts are 3 years old, and my phone number has changed and my address. And those people will panic when they call, and here's a disconnected number. Is he going to show? Is he not? And our little post office is very good. I get the mail. That's not a problem. But to alleviate that problem, I just simply sit down, call everybody on that tour, and let them know where I'm at, where I'm going to be, and that I am going to be there. You need to do that. You need to keep that in mind. Also, you will find out if I've gotten a little concerned at times about clubs, because the officers change. And so many times you go to call a dance, and everybody knows that the club used to dance at the First Methodist Church, and now they dance at the YMCA, and everybody knows that but the caller. Because, well, we've danced there for over a year. Those contracts are old. So I'm a little edgy about that, and I make an effort to call. If I don't get something in writing from people or a reminder, I put on the bottom of my contracts a reminder 2 weeks in advance would be appreciated. And I really like that. Just time, place, has it changed, and things like that. Those are things that I do. Now we're talking about partners. I'm a very laid-back person with a partner. Sharon does not travel with me to any degree whatsoever. I do a lot of dates in the summertime. In the wintertime, we live in Mesa, Arizona, work a winter program. I call 14 times a week, and Sharon does every session. She takes the money, makes the coffee. You know, that's 300 dances in 5 months. So she does every single session. She never complains, and enjoys it. We're together for 5 months, but now we go back out on the road. She don't want to see me for a while, and you can understand that. She's going to go home. She's got grandkids. She's got kids, and she wants to be just a normal person and enjoy that, and she does. And the road is not easy. It's hard. Again, Sherry's sitting back there. She'll tell you that. There are places that she loves to go. If I'm going to do a weekend here or a week at Kirkwood, she makes every effort. That's the one she wants to go to. That's where she likes to go. But the everyday, run-of-the-mill, beating down the road, no. And it's not fun for them. But she'll pick a week and go along because I'm going to go to Colorado or I'm going to go through the mountains or something like that. And I think you need to everybody be yourself. It's not easy for Sharon to sit in a group of people and speak. She wouldn't come here and talk like this because she's very uncomfortable. You want me? Oh, good. Yeah. She would be very uncomfortable with that and could not do it. One-on-one, on the other hand, she loves to sit and visit. So you have to do what's comfortable for you. To say that the partner should go to every dance, I don't believe in that. I think you should do what you're comfortable with. Maybe pick once a week or twice a week. It depends on your family. Depends on how many kids you have. If are they still in school? Are they away from home? Do you have grandkids? Do you have birthdays? Things like this. And I have to plead guilty. I've missed a lot of birthdays. I've missed a lot of that type of stuff. Now, all three of my wife's boys got married. I managed to make them all. I was at every wedding. But they had to work around me. And that's fine. And that's not really fair. But the boys all understood it. They all told her Sharon has 3 boys. And she told them, hey, it's got to work around Jerry. And that's the way it is. And yes, you can make some adjustments, but sometimes you can't. So you have to be flexible. You have to be understanding. For the guy that calls the dances, there's only one reason he calls them. He loves them. There's no way around that. Or she. Doesn't matter. You love to call. But everybody's different. Do what's comfortable for you. And sometimes you'll have to sit down. We have a young man started calling in our area, and he's very good, and he loves to call. And he said, Jerry, what do I do? He's got boys that are just now going to start high school. And I said, John, you're going to have to sit down and talk to your wife because there are going to be some basketball games and football games, and you need to be there. I don't care how much you like to call. Calling will be after those boys are out of school. And he has realized that himself now, and he's limited himself to 2 nights a week. And once in a while, maybe 3. But he tried to call everything and discovered that he couldn't work his job and be fair to the boys and to his wife. So you have to sit down and talk and say, hey, how much are you going to call? How far are you going to drive? Everybody is different. But do what's comfortable for you. And don't feel guilty about either way. If you're not comfortable going to every dance, fine. Don't feel guilty about that. Enjoy what you do. And when you go to the dance then, or go with him to a dance, enjoy the dance. And enjoy being there as a partner, as a team. My wife is excellent in Mesa. She's wonderful. Does she go to every session? Absolutely. She takes the door. She does the coffee, whatever. Although 2 days a week she's got started painting. She used to paint, hadn't done it in years, started back to painting. Those 2 afternoons, she goes to painting and I take the door. I can do that. I just go a little early and set up and do the door. And she paints, and she's doing a wonderful job and enjoying it. But I don't want her to feel guilty because she's not over there taking the door. Oh, well, you can do that. So I believe in being very flexible and very understanding, and those are the things. Do I do one-night stands? Is that what you were talking about, those? Or party dances? I no longer do very many party dances. I do so many club dances and traveling. I did do one this year. First one I've done in a long time. Last spring, for the owner of one of our parks. He's a Mormon, and he wanted to know if I'd do something for their kids. And I thought, well, yeah, I'd go to their church group. And they were kids 12 to 18, and they had about 30 of them, and it was just an hour. I had a great time with them. Well, this year they had me back just last Wednesday night. And went over there, and they had 104 kids, 12 to 18. Now, I haven't seen that much energy in a long time. But I enjoyed it. And I think next year they're going to have several churches to get together, and he thought there'd be 600 next year. Now, I'm going to milk that. I really am. I can find time for that. And the remarkable thing about it is they had a good time. They really did. I had to work at it, and it's a pretty solid hour. But I prefer that, like you said, no 3-hour stuff. Hour and a half. Nothing wrong with that. The other thing Greg talked about, taxes. I do my own books like anybody else, and sometimes it's the lady that does it or the partner that does it. Sometimes it's the caller. I happen to do my own. I have a degree in accounting, so I call square dances. But I do my own books. Now, I've been audited 3 times. And you can expect that in a cash business. I also was a farmer before I became a full-time caller. And anytime your income changes radically, you're going to do that. Well, the first time I got audited, I sold 2 batches of cattle in 1 year. Usually you sell 1 batch, then the next year sell the others. Well, they were ready to go, so I sold 2 in 1 year. It changes your income, you're audited. It's automatic. Big deal. One other time I got audited and it was over miles, and Greg Anderson was the reason for that. I had my tax accountant at that time who figured my taxes was my college teacher. He was a CPA, taught college. And I had a lot of confidence in him, but I'd always argued with him about miles, and I drive a lot of miles. And he said, no, you should take just the expenses on your car. And I said, I don't think so. And for a couple of years we'd had this argument. I went to a CALLERLAB convention. He got up and said I get 27.5 cents a mile. I just paid my taxes. And man, I went home and I said, you are going to file an amended return. He said, no sir. He said, they'll audit you. I said, so let them audit me. He said, I won't go in. I said, I don't care. So he filed the amended return. They audited me. And I record her up. I'm pretty straight up. If I call in the town, I'm on my deposit tickets, and that's because I was an accountant, I guess. That deposit ticket has that town right there, whether I got paid cash or whether I didn't. That town is written on a deposit ticket every town I've been in. I also have an itinerary. Tells people where I'm going to be. When I went in for the audit, I knew what they were going to check me on was miles. I laid the itinerary down. And she said, now I'm going to take a month, and they audit you strictly off your checks and deposits. That's all it amounts to. She said, I'm going to pick a month. I'll pick May. We're checking your miles. I figured that's what you were doing. And she went through the deposits, and she said, you were in all them towns. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, you pick a month. So I did. And she said, you were in those towns, too. I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, then this audit is stupid. I said, yes, ma'am. I was in the office 20 minutes and made $1,809. And thank you, Greg Anderson. I also fired my tax accountant and got a different one. But the point being, somebody has to do the books. Whether it's a partner, whether it's you, somebody has to do it. And keep good records. That's all it amounts to. Keep good records. Take what you can, what you feel is legally within your rights to take. If they disallow it, oh well, pay the tax. If they don't, go on. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Oh, excuse me.
Barbara Burton from Okmulgee, Oklahoma. On your mileage, do you put down the odometer reading before you leave and when you come back, or do you just put total miles?
For me, when I get in a car, I've got a sheet of paper in my car, a little log in my car. I do one for each month, and I start beginning mileage, and on that I also put the town I went to, what I made, and I've been keeping track of squares because I want to see what the activity is doing year to year. I put what I made at that dance, the number of squares, and the miles in the town. And if I'm out for 3 weeks, I don't total it till I get back. But yeah, I keep track of every mile, and that's basically all I do. Some people, they keep track if they went to the grocery store and back. You know, they take that out. My car is strictly square dancing, so I don't have to fool with that. But yeah, I keep track of every mile. Absolutely. I drove 53,000 miles last summer.
Well, we keep track of the miles, but I don't put the odometer down.
Need to talk on the mic. We keep track of the miles. I put the odometer number down. When we get there, then I just double it because we know it's round trip. And I just put a total down. I don't keep all of the odometer readings, and I wondered if that was one of the things that they checked for.
I don't think that they give you any problem with that at all. Not to my experience. For me, for a partner, it has to be what you are comfortable with. Some of you would do the one-night stands. You're going along. Sharon would not. Beginner lessons, Sharon would not. She's there when we started beginner lessons in May. She's there, but she never did go to class when I was home. Partly because she's not the teacher and she's not interested. Partly she doesn't have the patience that I have. I've seen her take the door there in Mesa and watch the first tip or so and then leave. You know. She doesn't stay the whole session in Mesa. She does what she has to do, and then she goes. And we're very flexible. We're very free. She takes her own car over to session, and when she's finished, she goes home. Or she goes to shop. She does all of my running. When we call 6 hours a day like we do in Mesa or they do down in Texas, that's all us guys do. We call square dances. Pure and simple, that's what we do. And the girls do the running. Sharon goes and does the printing for the ads. She does the printing for the flyers. She does all of my running. And she does it very well. And that's what she likes to do. She likes to do that type of thing. And it works very well for us. Anything else? Any questions? Mike?
I'd just like to follow up on one thing Jerry was talking about working with your partner. About 5 years or so ago, we hit a streak where we were out 5 or 6 nights a week. It seems like every week. And ladies, do what Marianne did to me. Sit him down and say, look, this is enough. We have a life other than square dancing. There's other things to be doing. But if you don't stop and talk to him, he's not going to know that. You have to define some common boundaries. And one way they're going to do that is to keep the open line of communications open. We sat down, we talked about it, and we backed off initially to about 3 or 4 nights a week. Then we backed down to a couple nights a week until some of the stress level, I guess, was reduced. Then we started going back and picking up a few other things. But the point is, keep talking. That's the only way he's going to know that you're getting stressed out. That's the only way he's going to know that there's just too much going on. And there's other things that you'd like to be doing as well. If you don't tell him, he can't read your mind, I guarantee it.
Are there any of you girls, there are some nights that you just don't want to go to this club dance? Do you go anyway? Why do you go if you don't want to? Aren't you important too, though?
But there's nights Andy doesn't want to go either.
Oh, well, that's his problem. He's the caller.
Linda Young from Amarillo. You might not want to go, and you may be stressed out, but I tell you what, at the end of the dance, if you go there and you really open your heart to those people, and they open this to you, you're going to leave in a better mood. I do.
I'm beginning to learn that I have to limit the number of times that I go out to a dance that my partner is calling, simply because at the end of the week he says, hey, it's Friday night, I'm not calling, let's go dancing. I say, no. So in order to do that, I have to limit the times I go to club or class.
Do you remember yesterday when I was talking about how much influence we have on people as partners? And when you go and you're tired and you sit in a corner and say, don't look at me, wouldn't you rather be home watching a movie?
Colette McMullen from Calgary. I agree with you. But I'm just wondering, a question here. In particularly club dances, for everybody that is a partner to a caller that calls for club dances, do the clubs expect that the caller's partner is there, takes part in everything?
I'm wide open on this one. I'll let you take it.
I know that in our area, especially our Monday night, well, Monday, Tuesday, all of our clubs, they expect me to be there. I have, when Larry took the third club, and they dance every week. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Excuse me, I'm being prompted to do what I'm already doing. In our area, the clubs dance every single week, 52 weeks a year. Our Monday night club happens also to dance the Monday holidays. They do mini hoedowns on those nights, so literally every week. We have 3 nights a week. These clubs do expect me to be there. When Larry took the third club, I said to him, I will go 2 nights a week. And what I do is take 3 weeks in a row, and if somebody's having a party night, okay, then I will make sure that I am at the Monday night club that week, and one other week will be the week I don't go to the Monday night club, so that I'm not there all the time. They don't expect it. The Monday night club especially was just overwhelmed when they got a caller with a partner. Their last caller, he was traveling so far, his partner didn't come. They are a major league into couples. I mean, it's just a major thing, which has been other problems that I won't get into, which we have been instrumental in moving along. But they definitely want the partners there. And if I'm not there, Larry is cringing about going because he has to tell everybody where I am, why I'm not there. Of course, I've told him, just announce it from the microphone, tell him I needed a night off, I worked late, I'm sick, whatever you want to say, do it, just do it from the microphone. And they won't bug you all night, but he won't do that, so he has this group bothering him all night to find out where I am. She ran away. Yeah, I ran away, Marianne said. Well, some nights that's true. And the other thing I'd like to say about partners is that, you know, your role changes over the years. When Larry first started calling, we had children in school. He also, at that time, we were in Pennsylvania. He traveled a good distance when he went to a dance. I did not go. There was just no way that I could do that. I worked a full-time job, had 2 kids, and he got home maybe at midnight. There was just no way I could go with him. When the kids got older and were in high school, it was probably even harder because we were in a more semi-rural area where there was no public transportation, so the kids needed to be taken places. And so I didn't travel with him then either. I do much more traveling now.
Talk about times off. For me, I always said I wouldn't be like my dad. He was a workaholic. We worked every day. I said I'd never be like that. I'm exactly like my dad. And I like to work. I like to call. I like to work every day. That's one of the things I like about Mesa. But Sharon doesn't. She expects some time off. And I just sit her down at the start of the year and I say, all right, which ones you want X'd out? What do you have? What do you want to do? Now, she don't like to think that far ahead. She's more into like, what are we going to do this week? And it's hard, you know, and I'm not talking 99, that's done. We're talking 2000, what days do you want? And you have to know, Sherry knows my wife. My wife will pop off. She's funny. She is. She pops off. She says, now look, Jack, this is the way it's going to be. You know, this day you are home. Got a family reunion, whatever. But you need to talk about that. Also, you talk about, well, are they expected to be there? I have a problem with that. It's like a minister's wife. She's expected to be there, but if you're, you know, being married, is she going to marry you? You know? And so Sharon does it this way, and she's got a point. Somebody said, why don't you go to all the dances with Jerry? And she said, what do you do for a living? Or she told us, or this lady asked her, why don't you go with Jerry to all the dances? And she said, what's your husband do? She said, well, he's a surgeon. She said, do you do surgery? Do you go with him? Yeah, and another gal asked her the same question. She says, what did your husband do? And said, well, he works for IBM. And she said, do you go make silicone chips with him? The point is, it's my job. And even if you're calling for a club and it's not your full-time job, it is your job to be there to call. I don't think you can reasonably expect the lady to go. And I like Sharon's approach. What's your husband do? Well, he's a baker. Do you go and bake bread with him? You know, and I think that's true. Sherry, I'm going to bring this back here. I was hoping to get you into this because she and Sharon are a lot alike.
Yes, I do agree with you to a certain point, but let's face it, square dancing is a couple activity. So the doctor's wife naturally isn't expected to ever be there, and the dentist or the baker or anybody else. But with square dancing, because it is a couple activity, I think it's nice when the caller's wife can go. If they are in the habit of going with them, they're expected to be there. And if they're not there, they're missed because they've been going all along. But if people don't expect Sharon, they don't expect her because they know that she very seldom comes, and they're thrilled if she does. But they don't expect her. So it's the routine that your club gets into with the caller. If the wife goes all the time, then naturally if she doesn't show up, they wonder why. But I see that in the valley. A lot of the callers' wives don't go with them down there, and they don't expect them to be there. I'm the exception. I tag along a lot.
Greg Anderson again. I want to refortify that because the word expect, and that was used up here by this lady too, well, people expect me to be there. They will expect you to follow a certain pattern of behavior until you stop following that pattern of behavior. And you can change expectations, and so I just want to refortify what Sherry was saying, that until you change that pattern of behavior, after a while they will adapt, but you really have to take a look at what is right for your life with your spouse and your family and do what is right. Carol does not go to dances out of town with me. She does some of the one-nighter parties because she really enjoys seeing the people and seeing what they're wearing, what kind of prairie skirt they got, or a new vest, that kind of stuff. She enjoys the one-on-one conversations with the people. But to travel to Denver or whatever to do a dance with me, she doesn't do that. And people expect that, and I continue to wear my wedding ring, and I continue to mention her name during the evening so they know that, well, Greg is still married, yeah, he still has I show the pictures of my grandkids so they know I'm really a normal type person. And but it's amazing, too, some of the questions you get, you tell people, well, they say, well, where were you last week? Well, I flew down to wherever to do a one-nighter party. Well, did Carol go with you? Well, duh. I said, no, I was gone less than 24 hours. I packed up my equipment, went to the airport, flew down, did the party, flew back the next morning. I mean, I can't afford to take her on a trip like that, and she wouldn't want to go on a trip like that. But people they get this mindset of, oh, travel is such a glorious thing, and doesn't your spouse go with you? Well, duh.
Only if the airlines are going to make all the money.
I'm going to tell a story on Sherry Haig, and that's exactly true. My wife does not travel with me to a great degree, and yet when she does, people are thrilled she's there, and so is she. She's like Sherry. She does every session in Mesa unless she's painting. And she does it because she likes to see the people coming in. They're friends. They become very, very special to us. And Sharon enjoys that. The road she does not. But when she does go, people are thrilled to see her. And she does not come to CALLERLAB. I would have liked to have had her come to CALLERLAB at times. But she's uncomfortable here. There's all these people, and they know me. They don't know her, and I have a tendency to stop and talk too much. And every time she turns around, where's Jerry? Where'd he go? So that happens. I'm going to tell a story on Jerry and Sherry Haig, because Jerry told this to me once. He said Sherry went with him for about 2 weeks. And he said, we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, that's the loudest apple I ever heard anybody eat. And that can happen in a car, 2 months. Yeah. That can happen sitting in that car, driving down the road. You drive all day, you call a dance. Drive all day, you call a dance. Drive all day, you call it a dance. 2 months later, she's eating an apple.